a time we have already had in the presence of God. It has been amazing, but I am ready to get into this message tonight. I wanted to share something personal with you to get started. I thought this would be a really good, let's just get real transparent and vulnerable real quick. I turn 40 next year. Just in case you want to get the birthday cards ready, it's going to be a memorable one. I turned 40 on Easter Sunday. And yes, I do like chocolate. I'm just saying. So there you go. I believe that this is a God-ordained birthday, that he would allow my 40th to fall on Easter. Chocolate, right? But, I've been looking in the mirror recently, right? This is that time you do self-reflection. And I've noticed that my skin has been changing. I hope these cameras aren't too close. But, I just want to tell you, I want to confess, I've really never taken care of my skin. I have really good genes. And I just want to say thank you, Mom. Thank you, Grandma. Rest in peace, Grandma. But, Mom, if you're listening, I just want to say thank you. I was never the teenager that had acne or pimples. And I never washed my face. I haven't really ever used, I'm the girl that, crashes at night and takes off her makeup the next morning. I have terrible skincare rituals. But I started realizing this year that things are changing. And I need to start taking skincare a little bit more seriously. So I've done some lengthy research, and I've tried out several things, and I'm starting to find out what's working for me. And I just want to report back that I'm getting very comfortable with my new skincare routine, and I like the results I'm seeing. And, if you want to know what information I found, DM me. I would be more than willing to share with you my research. But have you ever been there where you've looked into the mirror and you just don't like what you see? And I started thinking as I was just starting to ponder this message how, this year I haven't just looked in the physical mirror and seen changes. I've looked into my soul. I've looked into the soul mirror. I've looked into my heart. I've looked into my mind. I've been forced to look into a mirror and see who Danielle really is. I've been forced to see how I respond under pressure. I've been forced to see how when things are changing constantly, who Danielle really is. I've stared in the eyes of many people that are very close to me. I've listened to what has come out of many people's mouths, which shows their hearts. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I have to say, I don't like what I'm seeing. And I don't like what I'm hearing. Just like I looked in the mirror a few months ago and said, girlfriend, what's worked for you in the past ain't gonna take you into the 40s. Just like I've inherited good skin genes, I want you to know that here in the United States of America, we have inherited the privilege to live in a very prosperous and a very free country. What we consider poor in this country is extremely rich in most parts of the world. We have freedom of speech and religion. Here tonight, we can gather, and we don't have to worry about any consequences of this time meeting together. Our hospitals are state-of-the-art. Our technology is absolutely amazing. We don't even remember times before cell phones and computers. I want to say it has not been perfect, but the 21st century has been an age of prosperity. And boy, as 2020 hit us with a vengeance. It's like turning 40. We've seen everything rocked. The wrinkles have started showing up. The puffiness and the bags under the eyes have gotten there. The dark spots on the faces, the droopiness, and we don't like what we are seeing or what we are becoming. And so as I prayed and I said, God, this is my heart. What are you speaking? Because I believe that God is always speaking. He is always speaking. In fact, right now, he is speaking to the hearts of the women in this room and even to those who are online. But are we listening? And God very clearly said to me, give me this story that I guarantee you have heard since a child, of David and Goliath. 1 Samuel 17, they're going to put some verses on. And production team, I know I love you and you love me, and so we're just going to dance right through this chapter, and you're going to try to keep up with me, and I'll try to help you out a little bit too. How about that? We'll make a deal. Verse 24, I want to tell you is that most of you know this story. David is the youngest boy of his family. The Bible says that he was just a simple shepherd. In fact, the Bible, what I've read, says that he was probably just a teenager. And his job was tending a small flock of sheep. In other words, this is like working just a job, babysitting, or what teenagers do this day. It's nothing major, it's important, but it's a job. It teaches responsibility, it teaches faithfulness, it teaches stewardship. And so it says that at that time, though, his 3 oldest brothers were fighting for the Israeli army. And that there was a problem. And so we're going to pick up in verse 24. It says, while he was speaking with them, and so David's father, Jesse, had asked David, could you go and kind of like bring a care package to the 3 older brothers and then report back to me, give me a little bit of peace of mind to know that my 3 oldest boys are okay. And so David had gone out with a care package for his 3 older brothers and to see how things were going. And so it says, while he was speaking with them, while David was speaking with his brothers and their friends around that time, suddenly the champion named Goliath, the Philistine from Gath, came forward from the Philistine battle line. He emerged forward from the enemy line and shouted his usual words, which David heard. Verse 24 says, when all the Israelite men, that is the other army that was facing against the Philistine army, the Israelites were called of God. They were a people that knew God. They were a people that loved God. They served God. And so it says, when the Israelite men saw Goliath, they retreated from him terrified. And I want to pause right there, because if you look a couple of verses before that, it said for 40 days, Goliath had been coming out. He had been intimidating the Israelite army. He had been using his normal fear tactics for 40 days, every day, attempting and causing horrific fear towards the Israelite army. In fact, I would go so far to say that he was mentally harassing the Israelite army. In fact, I would go so far, and I'd like to push the line and say that he was emotionally abusing the Israelite army. They were subject to his fear tactics day in and day out for 40 straight days. See, I want to say, if when I'm just reading those couple of verses, that the Israelites had focused and allowed these fear tactics to enter through their ear gates. What comes through your ears, what you choose to listen to, is so important, because what comes through your ears goes straight into your heart, and that affects your belief system. They were meditating day and night on a problem. Their problem, it says that one army was on one hill and the other army was on the other hill. They were facing each other with a valley between them. Day and night, they were focusing on one thing, and that was the Philistine. And from the enemy line came out Goliath to tell him, who is strong enough to come fight me? And day after day, they retreated, terrified. But we hear about a little boy, David. And David was serving. While they were in that army doing what they were supposed to be doing, David was serving. He was serving his father. He was taking care of a small herd of sheep. He was just going about his normal business, being faithful in small things that seemed insignificant to the quote-unquote mighty, the significant men, the important men, the powerful men that are supposed to be defeating the enemy. But it says, the Bible describes David as a worshiper. It says the book of Psalms was written, most of those Psalms were written by David. He loved to worship. He loved to say, oh God, while he was going about his business with the sheep, just worshiping and writing songs and allowing songs to come from his heart to his Lord. And I believe that during worship, his mind was not fixated on what was wrong. His mind was not fixated on what could happen and the imagination of what could happen. His mind was not fixated on the news. His mind was not fixated on social media. He was worshiping. He had better things to do with his mind. He had better things to let through his ears. He had better things to let through his eyes. He was worshiping the very creator of this world. Listen to me. He was worshiping who created Goliath. He wasn't worshiping the creation. He took it a step up and he decided to worship the creator. Let me tell you something. Acts 7:49 says this: heaven is my throne where I sit, and the earth is my footstool. You think that the problems you're facing on this earth are big? They are nothing for my God, who says this earth and all the little tiny things, including a little tiny virus and a little tiny election, that's nothing. I created that world, and it is my footstool. All things are under my control. So while the Israelite army was being fixated on negativity and being intimidated day and night with fear, I believe David's faith was being renewed as he was worshiping and as he was serving and as he was doing what he should have been doing day and day. And he was actually refreshed, and he had the joy of the Lord on him. And so when he arrived at that battlefield and saw what was happening, his perspective was different. He saw something different than what everyone else saw. And we're going to read what it says in verse 25. It says, previously, an Israelite man had declared. Do you see? This Israelite man is talking to David. Do you see this man who keeps coming out? He comes to defy Israel. And David spoke to the men who were standing with him. What will be done for the man who kills that Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Just who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Oh, listen to me. Who is this that would dare to defy the living God? Who is going to exalt themselves above God? What is going to say that they are more powerful than God? David says, who is this? I have a question for you. I bet David was thinking to the Israelite army, who are you? Who are you? Have you forgot who you are? The living God is on your side, and you're letting a man defy the glory of God. Where is your faith? Where So the troops told him about the offer. They said, this is what's going to be done for the man who kills him. And verse 28 gets me. David's oldest brother, Eliab, listened as he spoke to the men, and he became angry with David because he sensed what David was doing. You know when someone's asking you a question, and you're like David saying, who is this? What do I get if I kill this man? So tell me more. In other words, when everyone around is scared, and you're like, what are y'all scared of? And all of a sudden, this starts ticking David's brother off. And it says he became angry with David. And he says, why did you come down here? Who did you leave those few sheep with in the wilderness? I know your arrogance and your evil heart. Oh, really? Really? You came down to see the battle. You know, sometimes you have a really pure heart. You have a really good heart. You're just trying to do what's right. And someone says something about you that is absolutely not the truth. See, I believe that Goliath represented fear tactics. It was a fear that caused that army to be scared to absolute immobility and ineffectiveness. They had lost hope. Everything that they had trusted in before. They had trusted in their armor. They had trusted in their training. But that was nothing. They had never been trained for a 10-foot giant. See, I want to tell you that sometimes having a faith-filled, half-glass full, not empty, positive attitude, it doesn't settle well with people who are looking and facing the exact same difficult storm as you. But when you show up to that storm and you're not tired and you're not worried and you're not stressed out, but you are actually excited about what you see, it's going to piss a lot of people off. Because let me tell you what David saw when he showed up. He looked at this battle, and he got excited because he saw this as a prime opportunity for God to raise up and to show himself powerful and to show himself strong and for the glory of God to be seen before all men. And so the Israelite army is scared out of their mind. But David's thinking, woo, this looks like a battle I am ready for. See, David said to Saul, because word got back to Saul, the commanding chief of the army. I think there's this little kid on the field, and he might be interested in facing this giant. So David said to Saul, don't let anyone be discouraged by him. Wow. Fear had settled in. They were terrified. They were retreating, and they were discouraged. And he said, your servant will go and will fight this Philistine. But Saul replied, you can't go fight this Philistine. You're just a youth. And he's been a warrior since he was young. Thank you for that sweet, sincere offer. But this is no match. And David answered Saul, your servant, me, David, has been tending his father's sheep. What my brother just said is so insignificant. Who's taking care of your small herd of sheep? See, I've been doing that. And while I've been doing that, whenever a lion or whenever a bear came and carried off a lamb from the flock, I went after it. I struck it down, and I rescued the lamb from its mouth. And if it reared up against me, I would grab it by its fur. I'd strike it down and kill it. Your servant has killed lions and bears. This uncircumcised Philistine, meaning this man that does not love God, that is defying God, it says, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will rescue me from the hands of the Philistine. I think there is something so key, girlfriends, you need to catch in this passage, is that the Israelite army was trusting in themselves. They were trusting in their armor. They were trusting in their training. And how they saw themselves is, we've never fought anything like this before. He's going to take us out. But in their training, sometimes you have to fight giants you've never had to fight before. You have to fight things that you think you have never been trained or you have never been prepared to fight. But can I tell you something? There is something interesting. You have been trained for this. This might look different. This might be much bigger than what you've ever fought before. But can I tell you that David knew a lion and a bear were much bigger than him. I don't know many men that are out there wrestling lions and bears and taking precious sheep out of their mouths. But see, he had fought some things that were bigger than him in the past. And God had showed his faithfulness in the past. And he remembered the faithfulness of God. He remembered the battles. Yes, 2020 has been a little different than all the other years that you have ever been alive. But you are prepared for this moment. You are prepared for this year. This year should not kick your face in. This year should not defeat your faith. Because I can guarantee you, if you and I sat down for coffee, you could tell me about 2010. You could tell me about 2012. You could tell me about 2015. You could tell me about 2019 that you didn't think you were going to make it through. But you are here tonight. You've made it through a divorce. You've made it through sexual abuse as a child. You have made it through absolute firing. And when you thought you were going to lose everything, and you're telling me that some coronavirus is going to take you out now? Oh my gosh, no. No. If God has brought you through what God has brought you through in your 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, he has been faithful in the past, he's going to be faithful however long. So Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. And then after that, Saul tried to help the poor boy out. And said, well, at least look like a soldier. You haven't been trained like a soldier, but look like one. So here's my armor. You know what's so funny is that this is where we know that David was just a very small boy. Because when Saul tried to put his armor on David, it said it was so clunky and he wasn't used to it. He said, I can't even walk in this. Like David's like, thanks, but I'm so tiny. Like I'm so small compared to all these other soldiers that this armor doesn't even fit me. That's how tiny, that's how puny he was. He didn't have any muscles. He hadn't been out there lifting weights, lifting boulders, I guess is what they had back then. He said, I'm not used to them. So David took them off, and instead, he took a staff. He didn't take a sword. He took a staff. See, this is where God had been faithful to him. Was while he was tending sheep. That's the God he knew. And see, David knew he couldn't fight this Philistine giant in his own power. He knew that much. He wasn't stupid. But he knew the God he had been worshiping in the fields. He knew that power. He knew that presence. He knew that glory. He knew that anointing. And he knew how powerful that God was in the fields. And he knew that that God had called him to fight a giant. And that, yes, he didn't have it in his strength, but he served a God who was so strong that nothing was too difficult. So he didn't take a sword because he knew that a sword was not going to kill this giant. If a sword was going to kill this giant, the Israelite army would have done it a long time ago. This giant was going to require different weapons. It was going to require knowing where your strength comes from, knowing where your power comes from. And yes, if you are relying on yourself, you need to be scared right now. You need to be cowardly. You need to be hiding in your house under your bed sheet because this, girlfriend, is scary times. But you are here under my voice, and I am telling you that there is a power that you can tap into that is so big and so strong and so mighty, and that we can tap into that and face any giants. So it said he took his shepherd's staff, took his staff in his hands, and then it says that he chose 5 smooth stones. And they were so small, the little stones for the 10-foot giant, that 5 of them fit into his sweet little shepherd bag. And then he took his slingshot. This looks like a match made in heaven, doesn't it? This looks like a match made in heaven. When we say, God, we don't have this. But Lord, I'm just your daughter. And I know who I am. And I know that you've called me. And so, God, I'm not going to fight this battle like the world fights it. I'm going to fight it in my word. I'm going to fight it on my knees. I'm going to fight it in worship. I'm going to fight this in humility and in faith, but there will be no fear in me because I know who I serve. And so he took his weapons of choice. And verse 41 says that the Philistine came closer and closer to David, with the shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he despised him because he was just a youth, and he was healthy, and he was handsome. I think that Philistine saw something in that little boy. I think he thought, this doesn't look right, but why am I scared? So he said to David, am I a dog? Am I a dog that you come against me with sticks? And then he cursed David by his gods, and he says, come here. The Philistine called to David, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts. And this is what I do want you to know, is that your enemy, it will talk to you. We've all had that fear talk to us this year. That fear will call you out. It will call you out by name, and it will actually list your hot button. David knew he was a youth. David knew he was not equipped and he was not trained for the army. That was his insecurity. That was his hot button. And the enemy called him out and said what his insecurity was and showed him how ill-equipped and ill-prepared he had come to the battle. Your enemy's doing the same thing to you right now. He's saying to you, why are you even here? Why are you even gathered in this room? He's calling you out by name and saying, you should be scared. You should be afraid. Who are you that you think you're so much greater than what's happening in this world? It's only a matter of time before the bottom of your life falls out. It's only a matter of time before sickness comes upon your home and upon your family. I believe that the enemy of your soul will belittle you. He will attack your identity and your ability. He will make you second guess your questions and your decisions constantly. And if you are hearing that voice, I want you to know that you are hearing the voice of your enemy. You are hearing the voice of the giant. You are not hearing the voice of a friend. You are not hearing the voice of faith. You are not hearing the voice of wisdom at that point. You are listening to the giant. Because David was not glitched. He did not double that. Those words meant nothing to him. Because verse 45, David said to the Philistine, buddy, I know what this battle's about. You come to me with a sword, a spear, but I am coming to you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. You, my friend, have defied him. And that will not happen. Someone that sets themselves above the power and above the glory of God. I will not stand for that. I will not stand for fear. I will not stand for manipulation or belittling or intimidation, because you have defied my faith. You have defied this army's faith. For 40 days you've been calling them out, and you've been tickling their ears, and you've been belittling them. And today, buddy, it is over. Verse 46 says, today, the Lord, not me, not my ability, not how handsome I am, not how healthy I am, but the Lord is going to hand you over to me. Today, you need to speak to your enemy. You need to speak to your fear. You need to speak to the lie. You need to prophesy life. You need to not prophesy and not speak death, but you need to prophesy life into that and say, let me tell you what is going to happen to you today. He said, today I'm going to strike you down. I'm going to remove your head. And I'm going to give your corpse of the Philistine camp to the birds of the sky and the wild creatures of this earth. And that is what fear says. Fear, it says that Goliath said to David, I'm going to give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts. And David, little David, looked at him and said, no way, no way, not today, Satan, not today. Let me tell you what's going to happen to you, Satan. On the last day of this earth, you are going to be defeated forever by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I have more, but the worship team can come back. See all these pages? I prayed in the back tonight. God, there's going to be some Davids that are going to rise up. See, I want to tell you, so where do we put our hope? Where do we put our hope? Well, our hope is not to be in this present world. If your hope is in this world, oh yes, you're really disappointed and you're discouraged. See, there's an old song that I grew up to. My grandma used to sing it to me. And she said, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. She always said, this is a temporary stop for me until I get to my eternal mansion. See, James 4:14 says this, you're like a vapor. If this was a hot cup of coffee up here or water, you'd see that vapor just disappears. It says we're here for a little while and then we vanish. And excuse me and pardon me if I'm going through a midlife crisis, but I've realized I'm at the half point of my life. My life's vanishing. It's been a good life. It's been a blessed life, not an easy life, not by any sense, but it's been good. But this is going quickly. This is not the life I live for. Oh, I'm on mission tonight. I'm on purpose tonight because my days are numbered. I have nothing to lose. My identity is not based on your approval. My identity is not based on who receives this message tonight and who does not. This is what my commander-in-chief has asked me to deliver to the troops tonight. And if he says to me at the end of this night, well done, good and faithful servant, that it's in his hands. This seed has been sown. See, I want you to know, Philippians 3:19 through 20 says this. He said these people are focused on earthly things, but remind them, my citizenship is in heaven. See, I'm not a citizen of this world. I don't identify with this world. I identify with a greater world. My passport says heaven on it. I'm just here as an ambassador to share the good news and to say, girlfriends, this is good. This is good. There's good days here. There's bad days. God said he's come to give us life and to give it to us more abundantly. And he's faithful. He's faithful on this side of heaven. Oh, but this is not all there is. In fact, this is slipping away so quick. I'd like to end with this story. Psalm 90:12 says, teach us to number our days carefully so that we may develop wisdom in our hearts. Teach us to number our days. How many days do I have left, God, on this earth? See, I think I'm right. Someone could fact check me on this, but I believe that we have 36 more sleeps until Christmas. That's how I tell Grace and Olivia, my 3 and 5-year-olds. They don't understand the calendar. So 36 is a lot to them. Like, we are like centuries away from Christmas. But all of us moms know that is like right around the corner. Or all of us that buy any gifts specifically, right? And so I want to tell you, every single year, just in case you don't know this, Christmas happens every year on December 25th. Did you know that? Right, it does, right? Every year. I know, newsflash, public service announcement. Every year, December 25th, Christmas. But somehow, I tend to wait until the very last minute to buy gifts. Do I have any of those in there? Probably you guys are all like plan ahead preppers. Okay, a few of you. And the reason why is not because I procrastinate. It's not at all that. I'm thinking about this like way ahead of time. But buying gifts is so hard for me because I just put a lot of thought into trying to pick the right perfect gift or a very meaningful gift. So I literally overthink gifts way too much, where really I should just go get something, wrap it, put it on the tree, or say like, hi, Merry Christmas, I love you. That's it. But no, I overthink it. And so pretty much like every December 23rd, I'm looking over my list and I'm stressing over like, well, what have I bought? What have I not bought? And every year I say I'm gonna do better. Every year I say I'm gonna plan better. And I wanna tell you, I'm making progress. Like, I'm actually like, I'm getting there for this year. I'm not there, but I am farther along than I have been in any other year. And so I am proud of myself for that. But here's what I want to tell you. I think what this verse is saying, if we think about it, is like, Danielle, number your days. You have 36 more days to buy Christmas gifts. And then December 25th is here. It's too late. And so if we only have so many days here on this earth, we all have an expiration date. And I know that can sound kind of bad, but can I just give you hope? Your last breath here on earth is your first breath in heaven. It's your first breath. It's your first breath in heaven. And so I don't think that verse is meant to be depressing, because I think it's to say, if we only knew we had so much time, would we live wiser? Would we live with more purpose? Would we live with more focus? Would we live with more faith and with more boldness and with more confidence? Would we obey his word if we knew that this life was only a vapor? Oh God, it says to teach me to number my days. Teach me to number my days so that I can have a heart of wisdom, that I can live each and every day in wisdom. And so as you stand to your feet, can I ask you, when you look in the mirror, when you look in the mirror at your soul, at your mind, at your heart, what do you want to see? Oh, I believe. Let me tell you what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at an Israeli army that is full of Davids. Can I tell you, I see an army rising up in this area that says, in the face of fear, in the face of giants, we are going to say, it is not by my might, it is not by my power, but it is by the Spirit of the Lord that is within me. We can face this giant because we know our identity. We know who we are. And so may I say, I see a David in you tonight, girlfriends. I love you. God bless you.